Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest session of the Southwestern District Virtual Training Series. This morning, we are pleased to be joined by Joe Cerutti. Joe has been a BHS member since 2000, the Artistic Director of the Alexandria Harmonizers since 2007, and a Certified Music Judge since 2010, all while working full-time as the Director of Outreach for the BHS since 2014. He has a bachelor's degree in jazz and commercial music and music education, as well as a master's degree in choral conducting, and has served on faculty at Harmony University consecutively since 2005. In addition to being an accomplished chorus director, Joe is a district champion quartet singer and has qualified in the past to compete at the International Convention. Joe coaches and teaches regularly at barbershop and various choral events throughout the world and enjoys working with quartets and choruses of all levels. Joe is passionate about helping ensembles grow and improve through acknowledging and building on current strengths, as well as identifying performance and rehearsal techniques that can help us address opportunities for improvement. With that, we're really excited to hear about fundraising the Alexandria Harmonizers. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate you joining us. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to see you all again. It's great to be with the Southwestern District and share some stories and some best practices that hopefully will help your chapters. This is the last time I met with the Southwestern District. I think I was somewhere in the 70s worth of meeting with other chapters and districts, and my count so far during the pandemic is I've had and not counting this because I visited you already, but I'm up at 93 visits to chapters and districts during the pandemic, and I'm happy to be here. I will share my screen and we can get this rolling. This kind of came about from the last session that I did on just having an overall growth mindset. We talked about the ability to raise funds during the pandemic, which people are kind of writing off as something that it's not the right time for, it's not something that is possible. And I believe that it's more than possible. I think that this is the perfect time to be doing it. So from that short discussion in my last presentation, I offered to come back and talk a little bit more in depth about that. So, the biggest thing, I'll kind of start with the overall objective to this. We're not going to talk specifically about this is exactly how you have to ask for money, because asking for money, I believe, is the easiest part. The most difficult part that will allow us to raise the most money is if we can modify our mindset as singers. Our mindset for decades and our identity has been as performance ensembles, meaning I stand up on a stage and perform at you, you sit in an audience and clap for us. And if we think of ourselves as that identity solely, the only way that we can raise money is by selling tickets to shows. So what we need to do, the unfortunate thing, but in some ways I would say the fortunate thing, is that identity as a performance ensemble has been stripped away from us for the last couple of months. And we're watching some of our chapters not know what their identity is anymore. And if we can pivot our identity not to be only a performing ensemble, but for that performing ensemble to be just a small part of who we are in our community, we could change our mindset and change our identity to be a community asset that specializes in the intrinsic benefits of singing together in harmony. Now, who in our large and small communities throughout the Southwestern District are in need of the benefits of singing together in harmony? The answer is all of them, they just don't know it yet, right? Everyone is in need of what we specialize in, they just don't know it yet. The problem is that we have to change our mindset from being fraternal or social to realizing that we are an asset within our community. And a huge part of that is our status as a nonprofit organization. Every healthy nonprofit organization benefits from having significant fundraising strategies. Given our need to make up revenue from our canceled events, end of year fundraising is going to become more important than it has ever been in the past. If we wait until December to develop these strategies, it will simply be too late. So we really need to consider each activity that we do, that we have done, and that we currently are doing even during the pandemic, through the lens of how will this set us up to be seen as a leader, inspiring others to contribute money and engage with us more often within our community. So what we do now in this historic moment should be an effort to endear ourselves to not only our membership, but to the greater coral ecosystem and our community in preparation for a bigger and more successful ask later in the year. Some say, well, how can we do this during a pandemic? And we will see that all sorts of philanthropic organizations and foundations are being very conservative with their funding. But there's a small amount of data out there that will show that those who are fortunate to have discretionary funds during this pandemic, given that many are working from home and saving a lot of money on not going out to dinner and not going on vacation as much as they have before, these people are actually more likely to give generously, to be connected to something making a difference during these difficult times. So I'd like to start this presentation by identifying our destination, where we'd like to end, and then we can work backwards. So this slide that you're looking at is the data from a recent fundraiser that my chorus, the Alexandria Harmonizers in the Washington, D.C. area, did during the pandemic. We did this was our annual day of giving that took place in April, relatively early on in the pandemic. And this was a 24-hour fundraiser. And over the course of 24 hours, we raised just a bit more than $32,000. And that fundraiser is something that we've been working on for the past 5 to 7 years or so, and I'll show some of that data. The interesting thing, though, is that the average donation size for us to hit $32,000 was $5 to $20 per person, which is really, really doable. Now you say, well, here it shows you have 465 donors. How did you, if they all gave $20, that doesn't make up to $32,000. Well, we did. I'll explain how we got to that number specifically, because there are a few tactics that we use to get to that number. But before we do that, let me share some of the data with you. So here is how we did it. As you can see, this is just the 5 years that we were engaged in this specific day of giving. And we had a great bump in 2016. The first year that we kicked this off, we said, listen, if we expect the community to give to us, we have to show that this is worthy enough for us to give. So we focused that first year in 2016 on our membership and our family, right? So we asked, the experience that you've had this year with the chorus, what is that worth to you? And everyone, whether they gave a specific dollar amount or not, they all said that it was worth way more than what they were paying for membership dues. So we asked them, what is it worth to you and what can you afford? And we asked that you donate that to the chorus during this 24-hour day of giving. And by doing that, what we are showing is we are showing other donors and our community that we believe enough in ourselves to invest in this, so that when we ask them to do it, we can show that we already set that example. 2017 was the very first year that we went to our community and said, okay, we've supported this organization. Now we're going to ask for you to support this organization as well. And from the community, our baseline was just under $19,000. In 2018, the bump that you see here is that was our 70th anniversary as an organization. And we had a goal of raising $70,000 in our 70th anniversary. And that alone bumped that number up significantly that year. Then 2019, we went back to a little bit more than 2017. And you'll see in 2020, we've had the most successful fundraising effort that we've had in the last 5 years, raising just shy of $33,000. This is the number of donors that we had. So I said in 2016, we mostly raised money from our members and family. And you can see that that number reflects that. Hang on. The next year was when we went to the community. Then we had our 70th anniversary. Then the next year, another significant bump up. And this year we had our highest number of donors yet. So,
Joe, before you go on, can I ask a quick question about that?
Of course you can, yeah, please.
So you mentioned in 2016, if you could go back to the previous slide real quick, you mentioned in 2016 that almost all of those donations came from internal sources from your members. And then it certainly makes sense for kicking this off. But then how did you spread the word that, we're willing to give to ourselves? Did you guys do like an annual report or something that you gave out to the community, or how did you disseminate that information?
You're already ahead of me, Scott. No. You're exactly right. I mean, it was through annual reporting.
Okay.
That was exactly how we did it, through, communication. What we did was we looked at other arts. This will be a theme that you'll hear a few other times throughout this, but we went to other more successful arts organizations in the DC area and learned from their best practices. And that was one of the big things that we learned, is putting out an annual report every year. Yeah. So that's kind of how we did it. Now let's look on how did we decide these things? Well, it's really, really important for us to make sure that we explain to anyone interested in donating to us who we are, what we do, and why we want their donation. So every year when we do these, we create 3 different videos that says, this is who we are in a 90 to 120 second video. Here is what we do, and here is why we encourage you to donate. And I'll just play a quick 15 seconds from each of these so that you see these are not highly produced videos at all. We don't spend too much money on these at all. We just kind of throw them together. This first video is simply a summation of all of our performances over the last 12 months. So it's just 30 seconds of some of the major performances that we've had, and I'll show this briefly. Get that. And it tells when the show happened, what month, 1 year, so that they know that it's all current information. Then we talk about why we do it, and it changes what we do. And this changes every year. The focus for this changes every year so that they are not constantly donating to the same thing. This year, it was our impact on youth in the community. And a music educator wrote us and told us about a quartet that she had and how they were impacted by our organization. So we read that email and we showed a short video of the quartet performing.
I love you, ooh, I love you, ooh, I do. So let's come on, come on, come on, come on and fly me to.
You get the idea. And then a slightly longer video on why we think we are a good organization for them to donate to. And I'll play a bit of that.
All of us are missing the human contacts and interactions that make up so much of our daily lives, and that most of us probably took somewhat for granted until they were taken away. A group like the Harmonizers feel that void very strongly, as our required isolation makes it impossible for us to do what we love the most, to get together and sing, for ourselves and for others. You know, I'm fortunate to travel all over the country and sometimes all over the world.
You get the idea. So coming up with these videos is not the simplest thing to do, right? How did we decide on these things specifically, on exactly what to say? This is something that takes a bit more thought than just throwing something together. It takes a bit of strategy. So how did we decide specifically on the content in those videos? You know, we decided that it's really important for us to have a strategic plan. And no matter the size or quality of a chorus, it's really important that you consider what the next 3 to 5 years look like for your organization. So let's talk just a little bit about a strategic plan. What is a strategic plan? It's essentially a big step back from the day-to-day operations that we're doing. It allows us to create new goals and new objectives. It allows us to target a plan and make sure that we have the steps to achieve that plan. Develop new priorities, establish future direction, to sharpen our focus as an organization and minimize distraction, to align the mindset of our membership, and to really communicate our message to the outside world. And in doing all of that, it will allow us to engage our community for help. So this is the overview of the Alexandria Harmonizers strategic plan. You'll see that it's broken down into 4 main areas, and each of those areas have a goal. And then those goals are broken down into multiple objectives. And then each of those objectives are broken down into multiple tasks. And each of those tasks are put into a timeline of making sure that we get these 3 things done in this month of this year to stay on target. Now, how did we get to these specific goals, and how did we do this on our own? The answer is we did not do this on our own. I believe that in almost every large and small community across our country, there are for-profit businesses that have people within them that are interested in volunteering their time to nonprofit arts organizations to help them with things like this. So we had a local government contractor here that donated time to us as a nonprofit arts organization in her community. And she spent 6 months with us developing our strategic plan at absolutely no cost. So I would encourage chapters that don't have a strategic plan or the resources to develop their own strategic plan to look to the biggest and most successful organizations within their community and ask if those organizations have a commitment to nonprofit, to community service, to nonprofit organizations within your community. And you'll find that most of them do. So then how did we get to these specific goals? First, we had to figure out, before we ask for money from people, how is it that our organization measures success? If I asked you right now how your organization measures success, most of us measure success through contest. Most of us measure success through ticket sales, right? Most of us measure success through our membership numbers, right? And then what are your measures of success and how do you define them? So I will share all of these examples of the Alexandria Harmonizers, but I encourage you not to just copy and paste them for you. I mean, you're welcome to, but they won't work for you if you just copy and paste them. So, but I will share examples. So these are what we decided were the 6 measures of success for the Alexandria Harmonizers. And we made sure that we put a brief definition to exactly what that means. So our measures of success are financial fellowship, improvement, membership, outreach, and prestige. And these are the things that if we are doing something that does not meet with any of these 6 things, we need to stop doing it. So what we did is we went through and said, what do we do that aligns with these measures of success? So we went through and took these measures of success and put everything that we do throughout the year, every single thing that we do, and we made sure that it falls into at least one of these buckets, if not multiple buckets. So we know that after this event happens, we need to measure it against that measure of success. Then we have to clarify how we will specifically measure these outcomes, right? So if the goal of our holiday show is financial success, the question that we have to ask is, what specific dollar amount is expected to be raised by participating in this event? If we're doing something for the purpose of recruiting members, what specific number of guests do we expect will come from participating in this event, ultimately showing an interest in potential membership? So every event that we do throughout a year, before we hold that event, we ask that question. And then after we hold that event, we ask that question again to see if the event lived up to what we hoped it would. I think I just said that. So then we answer the question for each activity. We capture what that number should be before the activity, and then we report that number after the activity. And then from those numbers, we decide to intentionally continue, stop, or modify every single thing that we do throughout the year. Now you may be saying, I came here to hear about fundraising. How does this apply to fundraising? I assure you that every bit of this applies directly to fundraising, and I'll close the loop on that in just a moment. What then are the impacts based on those outcomes? So if we hold rehearsal for the sake of improvement, the outcome of that is these are the answers to all of those questions, right? And that is where most of us stop. That is where most of us will stop. And what we have become experts in as barbershoppers is defining our what we have done, right? So typically, if we say it was a successful holiday show, we will report the what. We sold 250 tickets. We raised $5,000. And that is a what. That is not the why. That is your outcome. It is not the impact. By selling that many tickets, by raising that much money, what did you do from that? The answer to that question is what raises money. And that's what we have to understand, is that we have become experts as barbershoppers in explaining the what, in reporting the what. But if we can go one step further to explain the why, that is what people will donate to. That is what people will become loyal to. And that is the biggest thing that we have to be prepared to report on if we are going to raise money. So we take all of these impacts from all of these events, and we create an annual report. So if your organization does not have a strategic plan, it is vital to successful fundraising. If your organization does not create an annual report, it is vital to successful fundraising. If you want to raise $800, simple, right? Simple. You don't need any of this stuff. If your goal is to raise $800, go for it. Just hold your hand out and say, would you give me $5? And you'll find a way to get to $800. If your goal is to diversify your revenue and for fundraising to be an enormous part of who you are within your community, both the strategic plan and the annual report are vital to your success. So let's talk a little bit about annual reporting. What is an annual report? Well, it's the opportunity for you to tell your story to your patrons and to your community. It is a comprehensive look at the preceding year. It allows you to summarize your achievements. It actually contributes to increased confidence within your membership. It establishes interest within your community. It allows you to garner support from your donor base. It even supports you going after grant applications within your community, within your county, within your state. And it allows you to compare this to your strategic plan, to compare year to year and build your story, build your legacy, build your progress over time. Now, you may be saying, Joe, I know the Alexandria Harmonizers. This is a large organization that excels at a very high level. I will tell you, friends, this is not just for the 100-man chorus. This is not just for a chorus competing at international. This can be done by any and every chorus in our organization, regardless of your size or quality. And if this is overwhelming to you, I encourage you to start incredibly small and make sure that you don't do it on your own. Make sure that you ask for help within your community, because there are people that specialize in this sort of stuff that would be happy to volunteer their time for a nonprofit community arts organization. So this is the cover of our most recent annual report, and I'll take you through what the annual report has. Now, again, this is for my chorus. You don't have to copy this, but this is an example of what our annual report looks like. And if you're interested in seeing the full annual report or our full strategic plan, they're both up on our website, harmonizers.org. So the full strategic plan and full report are right there on our website for you to take a look at. The annual report starts with a message from me about what the last year meant to us and things that we did. It also, we have two different presidents, so it has a message from both of our presidents. And then it has an about us. If they're reading this for the very first time, it shares a little bit about our history. We are currently 73 years old, which means a lot to a community, how long you've been there, how long you've been established, and the things that you've done over those years. Then we talk about every performance that we did throughout that year. We add a few photos. We talk about the significance of those performances. Then we talk about every performance that we did within and for our community. Then we talk about the youth education that we've done throughout that year and share some photos and some stories. We talk about all of the collaborations that we've had throughout that year within the community and beyond. We talk about our quartets within the chorus and the extension that those quartets have to, for instance, singing Valentines, going into our community and spreading harmony and things like that. So the connection that our quartets have within to the chorus and within our community. And then we outline our overall organizational structure so that they know what kind of organization they're donating to, they are partnering with, so on and so forth. We lay out our finances. so they know that if they're donating to us, that their finances or that their donation will be handled professionally. We list our generous donors, our donor base, and at the different levels that they donate. And then we outline our overall fundraising strategy, the different things that we do throughout the year to raise funds. So now that we can tell our story to our community using an annual report and a strategic plan, what can we do with this? We can use this to recruit. We can recruit gigs, performances, we can recruit new members, we can recruit new support, and we can use this to fundraise. So we will print out multiple copies of this, and we'll send them to all sorts of organizations within our community, organizations that we want to collaborate with, organizations that we want support from, organizations that we want to perform for. And in doing this over the course of 5 to 7 years or so, we turn down more performances, we turn down more requests for collaboration than we are able to accept by doing these sorts of things. As I started this whole thing, our community does not look to us as a performance ensemble. They look to us as an asset, a community asset that specializes in the benefits of singing together in harmony, something that everyone within our community needs, whether they know it or not. So the next step to doing all of this that's really important is how we engage our community to support us. And one of the biggest things that we have done that has specifically had a major impact on our fundraising is that we looked at the best practice of arts organizations having their board not full of members who are also singing on their risers. So if you look at more legitimate and professional choral arts organizations throughout our country, you will find that the people who are sitting on their board are not the people that are also standing on their risers. The people that are sitting on their board are people within their influential people within the community who want to support them for what they do. So one of the biggest and most significant changes we have made as an organization is to diversify our board and involve our community in our board. So you saw during the annual report that we have 2 separate boards. I don't think that's necessary for all choruses or any choruses, but what we have, our structure is that we have our own 501c3 nonprofit board that is not connected to the Barbershop Harmony Society. And then we have our chapter board that is connected to the Barbershop Harmony Society. Our chapter board is the minimum size required by BHS, and they simply handle BHS related activity. Our other board is full of community members who want to support our organization, and there is a commitment from them to fundraise for us during that year. So I'll talk a little bit about this. Some of it may be redundant from what I just said, but having community board members is a best practice of nonprofit community choral arts organizations. Again, start small, right? We started this, I think 7 or 8 years ago, and we just started with connections that we had within the chorus. But what we have grown to become over those 7 or 8 years is that there's now a commitment, a pay-to-play commitment. If you serve on our board, there is an expectation that you will either donate money to our organization or you will actively fundraise for us. Now, you can't start there, but it's definitely a place that you can grow into. When we recruited our community board members, we focused on our key needs. We didn't just get generic people to help us out, we went and said, if we're going to get a community member, what is it that they should specialize in? So we were looking for people who could help with fundraising, who had strong community influence, who could help us with our strategic plan, so on and so forth. What this does is it creates awareness, it broadens our network, and it garners us support from influential people within the community. It also is highly motivational to our membership to see that people that are not singing on our risers want to step in and want to support our organization without receiving all of the applause from the stage during our performances. So it motivates our members, and it relieves some of our members of the commitment of sitting on our board. So how do you start? You start by really starting to survey your membership for potential candidates. What connections do you have within your membership to pose an ask to someone about serving as a community member on your board? And that's really the best place to start, is someone who has a personal connection within the chorus. So finally, that brings us to this annual day of giving, where we started. We have a significant annual day of giving that's coming up nationwide for all nonprofit organizations. It's called Giving Tuesday, and that is on December 1st. This is not a barbershop initiative. This is not a choral initiative. This is a nationwide effort that has happened for a number of years now. It's much like we have the day after Thanksgiving is Black Friday, and then we have Cyber Monday, right, for online sales. Giving Tuesday is the same as those things. It should happen in every large and small community across the country, and it is our biggest opportunity to get started in fundraising. And I would say that we have, between now and December 1st, Giving Tuesday, to figure out what we can do to piece together some of the things that we already talked about in this session. Who are we? Who do we want to tell the community we are? What is it that we do throughout the year, and why should they donate? If you do this appropriately, we should be able to start a foundation for fundraising within all of our organizations, regardless of the size and quality of our organizations. So if you're looking to do Giving Tuesday, the number one thing is, again, to start small and take it really, really slow. Focus first on your members. If your members won't support your organization, how in the world can you expect the public to support the organization? Use this to broaden your network, right? So think of your network in concentric circles, right? We have our membership, then we have the family and friends of our membership, then we have our work friends, then we have our church friends and our community friends, so on and so forth, and take each of those different parts of our network step by step. We use social media for all of that. So anything that we're sending out an email, we're making sure that we're posting it many times in different ways on social media. And we talked a little bit about the average donation size being only $5 to $20 for us to get to almost over $32,000. The interesting thing is that we went to the board and we raised money. We went to the board and we said, what can you donate? Then we went to the major leaders in the chorus outside of the board and said, what can you donate? And we used those donations as a matching challenge for every donation that was given during our annual day of giving. So finding a way to do that is something that makes others donating a lot easier. The other thing that we do is we consider all sorts of incentives. If you give us $100, we'll do this in return. If you give us $500, we'll put your name on one of our risers. If you give us this much, we'll invite you backstage before the show for this, so on and so forth. So considering a few incentives for what your donor base will find most interesting. I'll stop there and see if we have any questions. But before we do that, I do want to just reiterate, again, I'll go back to the very beginning and just say, while this time that we are in, this pandemic is incredibly difficult for so many people, this is an enormous opportunity for all of us. No one's going to say that the pandemic is easy or that this pandemic is a good thing. But while we're not able to do the things that we have always done, it is affording us the opportunity to do the things that we've never been able to do before. And this is a great opportunity for us to evolve, and for the choruses and chapters and members that rely on this creativity. I believe that we will look back at this pandemic as a renaissance for our organizations. And we will say that the pandemic was awful. There was nothing great about this pandemic, but thankfully it caused us to change and evolve as an organization. And while that was difficult, we are all better for it. So I'll stop there and see if we have any questions or comments.
Yeah, a couple questions that have come up so far. And guys, I'll open the mics up in a couple minutes here for questions that didn't come across privately on chat. But the information, first of all, regarding how you guys have set up your strat plan, and then the way that you've actually gotten to the why and then utilized that for your fundraising was a step that I learned something from, and I'm going to certainly go back with our board to discuss. In creating the community board that you talked about, and you built that up over time, and you mentioned that you got your own 501c3 for that, for the community board as a whole, or should say for the organization as a whole that's not part of the BHS 501c3. Did you guys start the board first and then, for lack of a better term, legitimize it and do all the state and federal requirements? Or did you have to get the 501c3 first and put that cart before the horse to then build that board? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so what we did was, and something that I'd highly recommend everyone consider doing, we took an entire year of board meetings, and we devoted 30 minutes in every one of our board meetings to someone within our community. So we made a list of all of the groups within our community that we aspire to be like. And then we invited 12 of those people to join us at every board meeting for the first 30 minutes. And in the first 30 minutes of that board meeting, what we asked them is to tell us, one, what is it that makes their organization an organization that we aspire to be like? Why are they great? When did they turn the corner to greatness? The second thing that we asked them was, can you tell us candidly what our reputation is within our community? Tell us what you know about us and our reputation. And what we found from doing that with 12 different organizations during our board meetings was we found out, one, there are so many best practices in the choral arts nonprofit world that we are not using as barbershop chapters. The second thing that we learned is that we are not known within our community. The answer to that second question was, actually, I don't know you guys at all. But what did this exercise do? This exercise took 12 of the most prominent people within our community, and they brought them into our board meeting and they learned about us. So that first step led us to say, holy crap, we need our community involved, and they need to have a seat. They need to have a voice. They need to come in and be involved on our board. So the first thing that we did was we went to the Barbershop Harmony Society, because at the time, the Barbershop Harmony Society was for men only. And our bylaws said that our board members had to be members of our chapter. So the Alexandria Harmonizers petitioned the society board and said, this is not helpful to us. We will not be able to grow as an organization. And the BHS said, well, we'll give you 2 spots on our board, on your board, as a pilot. So what we did was we put 2 women from the community in those spots. And then unbeknownst to the community members, we made them members of the Barbershop Harmony Society, 2 male members of our community, also members of our chapter, so that we could get 4 community members. Well, it just wasn't enough for us, right? So we decided at the time that what we needed to do was have a separate nonprofit board so that we could do whatever we wanted with it. Since then, BHS has changed those bylaws. So it's not necessary for a chapter to create or have a separate nonprofit. And I do believe that over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, the Alexandria Harmonizers will slowly morph those back into one board again, since there aren't as many restrictions. But what we did was we first used that pilot to test it out with 4 community members. And it was so incredibly successful in that very first year. What we did was we brought on a nonprofit lawyer, we brought in a political fundraiser, and we brought in the head. So here in Alexandria, Virginia, is the headquarters for Masons, and we brought in the president of the national headquarters for the Masons as well. And with those 3 people, they said, Alexandria Harmonizers, I love the way that you sing, but here's the way that you're going to run your business. And it was wonderful. It was the breath of fresh air that we needed. And from that point, we've just gotten bigger and better in how we solicit those board members, how we maintain those relationships, how we utilize those unique business perspectives that we have on our board.
So I just learned something there. I was unaware that the BHS had removed the 2 non-members restriction. It's now open up so anybody can serve on the board?
I'm almost certain. I'm not an expert in governance and bylaws sort of things, but I was under the understanding from my chapter leadership that the need for us or for any chapter to consider starting their own nonprofit organization is not as important anymore, and that we're going to even consider over the course of the next 3 to 5 years of slowly merging that back into one board.
Okay, so that little side note, and I want to come back to how you attracted some of those board members, but on the chat, Jack was asking, how do those 2 boards interact, and is the chairman or president of the barbershop board automatically on the community board? Can you talk a little bit about the symbiosis between those 2 boards?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question, Jack. So that's exactly right. Each board has a president, and then the chorus has an executive director. So our executive director kind of oversees both boards. Then each board has a president. And then the interesting thing that we found is that the president of one board sits as a member of the other board and vice versa. And both of the boards have 51% chapter members. So the community members could never come in and take over our chapter or cause us to do something that the members don't want to do. The members on both board, well, the BHS board is 100% members, but it's very small. And the community board is 51% members, so that we always have the majority. God forbid anything should happen. But the presidents sit on each other's boards, and there's an executive director that oversees everything. But I will say the biggest growing pain that we had in all of this is that when we were inviting those community people to sit in on our board meeting, they shook their head. They were like, this is not professional. Your board, right? We were arguing in our board meetings about what we should price our holiday show tickets at. And, this member having vocal issues and all sorts of things like that. And they said, if you're going to invite members of the community to sit on this board, you have got to legitimize how you run these board meetings. So, Jeff, I see your question and you're asking a very legitimate question. Our BHS board meets every month, like most of our boards. However, that community board, that nonprofit community board, only meets quarterly at most, right? And those board meetings do not discuss our day-to-day operations or anything along those lines. So we have removed operations completely from the boards whatsoever. So we have our BHS board, we have our nonprofit board, and then our executive director oversees what we call an operations team. And that operations team is what is shows and membership and the music team and all of those other operational parts of our organization. So again, I know that I'm speaking over the heads of some of you in that you say, this is way too much. This is way too big. This is way too complicated. And I totally get that. The point is, start small, right? There is something that every single chapter can take away from this, right? And I'm answering the questions that you're posing about community boards and the board structure. But if your organization is smaller, a lower quality chorus, you have such great worth in your community. Quality of a chorus, size of a chorus means nothing. If you are encouraging people to get together and sing, that is something that our world needs more of, that our communities need more of. And instead of saying that we just do this to sell tickets, say that you do it to be an asset to your community, because that will open so many more doors for you.
So how did you go about finding and I hate to use this word, but enticing those qualified people to serve as board members on your community board? Like you mentioned the president of the Masons, and you mentioned a political fundraiser. How did you entice those people to again, entice is a little bit strong of a word, but how did you get them to agree to come on and serve? Because in a lot of cases, they may look at it and say, why do I want to get involved with this?
The nonprofit lawyer was a boss of one of my singers. The political fundraiser was a client of one of my guys who owns a framing shop. And the Masons was a friend of one of our members. So we utilized all of our connections within the chorus first. And we probably had to do that for the first 2 years or so. From that point on, they became so in love with our organization that they are now serving as the president of the board, that they are now recruiting their friends to come and fill their positions on our board. You know what you need the most? You need this person, and I'll get them for you, right? Now, it took us years to get to that point, right? It took us years for them to say, oh, I believe in you. Oh my God, this is great. So don't take this as me saying, oh, this is simple. It's easy. Just go and do it. It takes significant effort, right? Which is why I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's easy to leave a presentation like this and go, it'll never work for me, right? If your mindset is it'll never work for me, I assure you, you're right. It will never work for you, right? But if you say, I wonder what I can take from this and apply it to my situation, anyone could create an annual report, even if it's a one-pager, right? Anyone can start to think about what do we want to become in the next 3 to 5 years as an organization. Anyone can look at what assets they have within their community and ask if they would volunteer time to help them. The thing that made us take the leap was not that we did it. We didn't do any of the work. but we found people in our community who specialize in it that said, we will lift this for you, right? This is what I do professionally, and I will help out with that. Jack, I see your question. Is there a role for the community board in minority outreach? We have a role in the community board for outreach. And the way that we define outreach is serving a very specific community that is in need of what we specialize in. So we look at the demographics of our community and we figure out who needs what we specialize in the most. And if that happens to be a minority, for us it is. We have the second oldest Baptist, African-American Baptist church in the United States, here in Alexandria, Virginia. And they have an African-American men's chorus that of 40 to 50 African-American singers that rehearses. They've rehearsed 7 blocks away from us for 30 years, right? So in doing all of this work, we found out that there is an African-American men's chorus just down the road from us. And that has led to, I could go on for an hour on what sort of collaboration we've seen from that effort. But I would say that our outreach to our community has grown exponentially from our awareness that we've made from fundraising, our community board, so on and so forth. Hey, Hank Hammer, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Our community board is, I believe, eight people. Sorry, so I don't think that is correct. Let me see. I have it here. I have it right here. One, two, three, 4, 5, 12.
12?
12.
Great.
So 5 of them are community members so that we maintain the 51% singers.
Thank you.
So you have a stipulation, Joe, that you said more than 51% of the community board needs to be singers?
Right. And that's just for us. You know, they're all wonderful people, but we were advised that let's say one of my members dies tomorrow and leaves us $1 million, right? Does the community decide that we need to dump that money right back into the community because they have the majority on our board? So we just try to make sure that we're not expecting that anything awful would happen, but we're just trying to make sure that, God forbid, we need the membership to have a majority in a vote, that we have it.
Understood. So shifting gears a little bit, have you had any success? The part that you did about the annual report was fascinating. Have you had any success seeking grants utilizing that annual report and the structure the way that you have now?
Yeah, Scott, you're teeing up the best questions. Thank you. So in the state of Alexandria, in the state of Virginia, I'd like to think that Alexandria was a state, but it's not. In the state of Virginia, the Arts Commission says that barbershop harmony is not an art and it is not worthy of funding. It lists this in the state of Virginia Arts Commission. Barbershop harmony is listed in their description saying that it is not worthy of funding and it is not considered an art. And for decades, the Harmonizers have not reached out to the state for funding because of that. It wasn't until we had an annual report that showed all of the things that we were doing, that showed who we are, what we do, why we're a worthy organization, and we overturned that, and that was removed from the State Arts Commission. So I say that to say that we have lately, over the last 2 or 3 years, been successful at receiving grant funding from the city of Alexandria, the state of Virginia, and then a few other philanthropic foundations. Now that again was not easy. We still get declined in more applications than we win. So we have someone who writes grants for us, and we have someone who is not in the chorus that will also support us with grant writing. And our success rate is probably 20%. We win about 20% of the grants that we apply for, but we do that at all levels.
Yeah, and frankly, 20% is a pretty good batting average for grant writing. So that's pretty encouraging. In the bylaws, or should I say, in the mission statement, or the I guess the terms of the way the community board is set up, is Barbershop Harmony even mentioned in that mission statement, or in the community board, or the the documents surrounding the community board?
It is. There was a period of time where we stepped away from the term barbershop because of the negative stereotypes that it had. They thought, oh, well, they're singing old music. Oh, well, they're wearing the striped vests and the straw hats. There was a period of time where we stepped away from using Barbershop Harmony for that reason. We've actually lately doubled down on it. We believe that from Jimmy Fallon doing the Ragtime Gals, and for a number of other reasons, Barbershop Harmony we are transcending the negative stereotype for a number of reasons that I could go into. But right now, what we're realizing is that by doubling down on Barbershop Harmony as an art form that is an indigenous style of music to America, is something that people are actually wanting to support. There are not many art forms that we can say are indigenous to America. So if we are one of the only groups within our community that is performing an art form that was originated in this country, there is federal funding available for groups that are doing that sort of stuff. Now, boy, you got to be a big organization and a great organization to get federal funding from NEA or something along those lines. But we have decided lately to double down on barbershop as an indigenous art form to this country.
So I saw that Jeff just posted a question here about singing Valentine's. He said, I saw that you do Valentine's for free. In most cases, small choruses depend on that as an income generator for the year. With this pandemic, do you all have a plan for Valentine's to get them delivered?
We've thought a little bit. The reason that we do singing Valentine's for free is if we say that we are a community asset and then we only do things for people who can afford it, we're really not a community asset. So our Singing Valentine program is for free, and it's only offered to the parts of our community who need it the most. The military families who have people overseas, the schools that are in underserved communities, nursing homes, things like that. And by doing that for free for the city, we're more likely to receive an arts grant. Now, I'm not saying that that's any sort of quid pro quo that we have with the city, but when the city says, why should I give you a grant? You made $12,000 off of Singing Valentine's last year, as opposed to, we devote our time to serving the community. We want the city to support us for our efforts. They're more likely to give us that grant if we do that. So that's a really, really important initiative for us. I will say that if you look at arts organizations, the funding model, the revenue model of arts organizations, they are far more diverse than us. If you look at the average barbershop chorus, our revenue comes from ticket sales and membership dues. Or I'll say it even broader, performance, of which we could consider singing Valentine's to be various performances, right? And membership dues. That is not diverse enough for us to have a successful, healthy, sustainable organization, right? If we want to be healthy, if we want to be sustainable, we need to diversify our revenue greater than just those two things. And that's essentially what this talk is about. If we look at the groups that are more successful than us, and that's not to say that we are not successful as barbershop groups, but all I do in life is obsess over the people and the organizations that I aspire to be like. And if we do that, we will find that the model is completely the opposite of what we do with our barbershop choruses. So our model for most barbershop choruses is this: I'm going to put on a fall show. We're going to put on a fall show, and we're going to hire a quartet and hire a venue. And here's our bank. Here's our money, right? We're going to hire a quartet. We're going to hire a venue. We're going to get tickets. We're going to do all of this. And we spend our money. Then we put on the show, and we hope that we sell enough tickets to raise that money or more back again. The funding in the arts world is the exact opposite. If you're going to put on Mozart's Requiem with a full orchestra, there's no way that you could sell enough tickets to actually raise the money that it costs to put on that concert. So what they do is they fundraise. They raise money, they raise money, they raise money until they have enough money to put on Mozart's Requiem, right? Then they spend that money to put on Mozart's Requiem, and the ticket sales from that concert start to build up the budget for the next major project. It's the exact opposite of the way that we work as barbershop chapters. But it's also to say that barbershop chapters were originally meant to be fraternal, right? They did not expect that we were going to get to the quality that we were going to perform and do the things that we're doing. So if your organization is fraternal and you're happy being fraternal, that's great. But no one wants to give to someone's hobby. No one wants to give to you going out and having a good time. So if you want to remain fraternal and you want to raise $800, then we're probably doing the right thing the way that we are right now. But if you say, I want to transition from being that social entity to be viewed more as a choral arts organization within our community, then these are the things that we really have to start looking at doing.
So that's a great way to start to wrap this up. I know we've kept you about 10 minutes over time here, Joe. Real quick, are there any questions out there? We can open it up real quick if there's any additional questions. Joe, while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions to add, you said that most of the documents that you showed us are on the Alexandria Harmonizers website, like the annual report and the strat plan.
Yeah, I'll share these slides with you so that you have the videos that we made and any of that sort of stuff. So I'll share the slides with you, but if you're interested in looking at what our annual report looks like in its complete form or our strategic plan, both of those you can find on our website, harmonizers.org.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you'll send me the slides that you had, I'll go on ahead and get those posted into the comments of the YouTube channel or the YouTube post when I get that posted later on today.
And the other thing that I'll say, Scott,
so,
I know that, so I see, Alan, are the fundraising promotional materials available to view as well? They're actually not. If you go to my personal Facebook page, if you have access to that and scroll back to April, you'll see all of the things, or the Harmonizers as well. If you go to the Harmonizers Facebook page and scroll back to April when we did this, you'll see all of that there. Or if you have trouble finding it, you can shoot me an email and I'd be happy to send that to you. The thing that I wanted to say is that if any of you are feeling like, okay, I'm bought into this, all right, I think I want to try this. I said it before, but we have this enormous opportunity that most of our chapters don't take advantage of, and it's called Giving Tuesday, and that is on December 1st. I want to tread very, very lightly, as I know that there is a significant amount of conflict between the Barbershop Harmony Society and Harmony Foundation. So take this with a grain of salt, and I don't mean this to support either of these organizations whatsoever, but it is possible to use the Barbershop Harmony Society's platform that they use for fundraising for your chapter to fundraise for Giving Tuesday. So what what any chapter would need is a place to direct people to go and donate those funds. And right now, the platform that BHS is using would allow you to do that. I won't get into the specifics, and I don't say that at all to get in the middle of the BHS and HFI dispute that's going on, but I would encourage you, if you're thinking of doing that, to look into such a platform, or if you are interested in considering the BHS platform, to reach out to someone at BHS to find out more about that.
Awesome. Okay. Any final questions before we wrap this up? I see that Mary mentioned here that the bylaws for the BHS allow for 2 non-members to be on the board. So it sounds like that is still in place, or we can at least contact the BHS to verify if we need to. I
would contact BHS to verify, because I'm almost certain that that's changed. But if not, it would either be reasonable for you to ask BHS to change that, right, for your chapter bylaws, or to consider doing something else if you want to move in that direction, depending on the size of your chorus and the size of your board. Sometimes 2 non-members is enough to start, and it's a great place to start, and then you move from there.
Like you said, that's, you mentioned that a few times. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't eat an elephant all in one bite, right?
Right.
So you start small and build from there. So any final questions before we let Joe go? I see a couple people have unmuted.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Hank. It's great to see you, man.
Great seeing you.
All right, Joe, we really appreciate your time. This has been fascinating. I'm sure there may be some questions that come out of this, and if so, if any are passed to me and I can't answer, I will certainly reach out to you, and really appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. As I mentioned, I will be getting this posted on YouTube a little later today, and we'll send out the link. So y'all have a happy Saturday. Thanks for your time, Joe.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. Hey, Nick.
Thanks, Joe.
Good to see you, Nick.